Place your machine in a location to what the prep guide, installation prep guide has taken into account any obstacles that might be in your way, making sure to keep enough clearance for your electrical panel and enough clearance to put on your in-feed and out-feed conveyor. The tools that will be supplied with the machine that are needed to install this machine will be an 1.5" wrench, an 1 3/8" wrench, and a precision level for leveling the machine. The parts in the parts box are included our paperwork on how to have all the information on setup, an operations and maintenance manual, cleaner for cleaning your machine, rags for wiping your machine down, chain wax for lubricating your machine, anti-seize for keeping your spindles loose, the 2 different types of grease required for greasing your machine, a square for checking your material and checking your thickness of your material, a digital amp meter for checking your voltage of your machine, tools for taking off your tooling, two more tools for taking off your tooling, a feeler gauge for checking to make sure your end of your stone is not tapering off, and a paint touch-up kit for touching up blemishes on the machine or deep scratches with instructions on how to mix the paint up. You start off leveling your machine by putting your precision level on the machine surface on top of the machine. We'll start off with the operator side to get front to back, and then we'll move to the away side to get front to back. You start off by putting your 1 3/8" wrench on the bottom nut of the foot. Using your 1.5" wrench, you'll loosen the jam nut up. Then you take your wrenches out of the way and spin your jam nut so it's out of the way so we can level the machine. What you want to do is get the bubble of the precision level to land in between the 2 solid red lines on your precision level by cranking on the feet from front to back. To lift the machine, you crank clockwise. To lower the machine, you crank counterclockwise. Once you have your precision level with the bubble centered on your 2 red lines, then we'll move off to the other side of the machine. Now that we have the operator's side level, now we moved off to the away side. We set our precision level underneath this gearbox here and crank on our feet front or back to get to level to where it needs to be in the center of the 2 red lines. And we got the bubble to the center of the 2 lines. So then we'll double check the other side to make sure that that didn't go out of adjustment. Now that we have the away side level, we move back to the operator side to double check that it's still level, and it is. So now we'll move off to the front to go side to side to get the machine level side to side. Now that we have the machine level front to back, we have to level the machine side to side. To do that, we set our precision level on this aluminum bar. So we have to open up the machine, slide the aluminum bar away from the belt, make sure it stays level in there, and we'll be setting our precision level on top of the aluminum bar. Now we'll do the same procedure by getting the bubble in between the two solid red lines to get the machine level side to side. Now to get the machine level side to side, we're looking to get our bubble in between the two red lines. So when you're lifting the machine on one side, you want to lift a little bit on the front and at the back at the same time. Then alternating to make sure we don't lose our level front to back. While double checking our bubble to make sure we're getting into our level position. Now that we have our side-to-side level, we'll double check our front to back by putting our precision level back on our machine surfaces and making sure it stayed where it was supposed to be. By adjusting your feet on each side, that sometimes throws your front to back out of level, so we'll readjust our front to back to make sure it stays level. Now that we have our front to back level on this side, we'll double check our front to back on the other side. Now that we have double checked our front to back and side to side, make sure that it's all level, we're going to have to jam the jam nut. Start by hand threading the jam nut all the way to the top. Take our 1 3/8 wrench, put it on the bottom nut, and hold that, taking our 1.5 inch wrench and going counterclockwise and tightening the jam nut. Make sure you get plenty of pressure on there so they don't come loose. We'll do all 4 corners and then we'll double check to make sure the machine stayed level again. Now that we have the machine level and jam nuts jammed down, we'll move on to our conveyors. First thing you want to do is remove all the plastic and the boards holding the machine, the two conveyors together. Making sure you don't cut into this painted steel with your knife. Cut all the plastic off of them. Inside the cardboard box are your rollers that we'll put on after we get the conveyors in place. Before we cut the banding loose that holds the two boards together, we're going to prop the two conveyors up so they don't tip over on us. Do that by taking a 2x4 separate on each one, setting it underneath back here, and giving it a little kick to support them inside of there. Once the 2x4 is in there, then we can cut the strapping that holds the two together apart and remove the 2x4s that hold them together. Before we remove the conveyors into place, we have to remove the bolts that hold the conveyors in place so we can set them into position. Once they're removed, set them off to the side so they don't fall into a drain anywhere. Same thing on the infeed side, we have to remove the bolts. So in placing the conveyors, there are two different conveyors. One with the brush on the front is for the in-feed side, and one without is for the out-feed side. There's two separate ways you can move these conveyors, either with a forklift underneath the center of them, or by lifting with an overhead crane with the straps. Place through the lifting holes, making sure not to hook into the second one, only onto the first one. So in placing the conveyor in here, you're going to have to loosen up the pusher bolts and lift them up so we can line the holes with where the bolt holes were that we just took out before. Now that we have the pusher bolts lifted up high enough that we can thread the bolts in, we'll thread the bolts in. Now that we have the two bolts holding the conveyor on, we can set the outfeed side of the conveyor all the way down on the ground. Now that we're lifting the away feed conveyor up, you can see the slots that are designed for putting straps through for lifting the conveyor. If you use chains, make sure to put some sort of material behind them so they don't dig into the paint and gouge your paint. Again, we got to loosen the pusher bolts up so we can align the holes for bolting the conveyors on. At this point, we're only going to put the bolts in finger tight because we're going to have to adjust the height, and then we'll tighten them up after we get the height adjusted. We can set the conveyor all the way down to the ground. Before we put the rollers on, we'll remove the stone support guides by taking 3/8 bolts out with the 9/16 wrench and setting the supports off to the side. We'll tip the front supports down by pulling the pins out. So the rollers come with 3 white rollers and 2 gray washers on them. Gray washers are to the outsides of the pins. Those flats that slide right into the grooves on the conveyors. Put all of them in all the way down. We're going to repeat the steps on the other conveyor. The aluminum bar that's shipped with the machine inside of it, clamped to the machine, is used for setup of the machine, leveling it, leveling the infeed and outfeed conveyors, and also for setting the height of spindle number 1 every day you need to do that. To level the infeed conveyor, we move the bar out over the top of the infeed conveyor. We set the precision level on the center of the bar. Once we have the bar and the precision level on the bar, on the infeed conveyors, we'll adjust the infeed conveyor to get it close to level with the wrenches used on the 1 foot down here. Once we have the infeed conveyor close to level with our precision level, we're going to move to the infeed side. Try to get the bar to roll smoothly over the white rollers to the black rollers, only going to the first 3 black rollers. The first 3 black rollers are a little bit smaller, so the machine takes off a little bit of material to make a square edge to polish. We remove the brush for visual. You do not have to remove the brush to do this. You want to make sure the aluminum bar rolls so it rolls the black rollers. We're going to adjust the front of the conveyor so it drops down to touch the black roller by adjusting your pusher bolts. Moving both sides the same amount until the aluminum bar touches the black roller. Once the aluminum bar touches the first black roller, roll the aluminum bar in and make sure it continually touches all the black rollers. So after you have the bar touch the first black roller and you move forward with the bar up to the third black roller, the first one came loose. You're looking at the precision level. You're going to actually have to lower the in-feed conveyor foot down just a little bit to make sure the bar touches all three rollers. And now the bar is not touching the first white roller, so we'll have to bring the front of the conveyor up a little bit. Going back and forth until you get all the rollers to touch evenly. So we're checking for equal amount of tension against the bar on all your rollers. Some of the rollers will be oblong, so you'll have a little more tension in one spot versus the other. So once you have the machine leveled out to where all the rollers are touching smoothly, the precision level will be between 1 and 2 lines with the bubble facing towards the machine. Now that we have the conveyor level, we need to tighten the bolts down that hold the conveyor to the machine. There'll be a bolt on this side that you want to get tight, and there's also one on the other side. Making sure that you get these plenty tight so they don't come loose. We'll do the same process with the foot as we did on the main machine. Using your 1 3/8 wrench, hold the bottom nut, and then thread the top jam nut all the way up to the top. Holding your 1 3/8 wrench in place so it doesn't move, take your 1 1/2 wrench and tighten the jam nut tight. Once we have the conveyor level, we'll put the supports back on, only putting them on finger tight until we adjust the depth of them. Now we'll pull the bar out to in front of the first support, and we'll crank the bar tight with the conveyor to hold it in place and adjust the depth of the first support. You want the bar to just barely touch the vertical rollers, and then tighten down your 2 bolts that hold the bar in place, making sure that it doesn't push the aluminum bar away from the belt conveyor. After you have the first support tight, you pull the bar out and go to the second conveyor by holding the bar tight up against the first support to adjust the second support. Making sure it rolls against the first support freely, not to push the aluminum bar away from the first support. Then tighten the bolts down. Now we'll repeat our process from the in-feed conveyor on the out-feed conveyor by putting the aluminum bar over the out-feed conveyor, putting precision level on the middle of the bar, and getting the conveyor to be level to the bubble. Again, putting your precision level on the middle of the bar, making sure that you have two lines of the bubble facing towards the machine. Repeating our process of the same from the out-feed conveyor as we did on the in-feed conveyor, making sure our bar touches the white rollers and bringing it up or down to make sure that all the rollers touch evenly. After our precision level is where we want it, we'll tighten the bolts down, holding the conveyor to the machine. Again, repeating our process from the other side, we're going to hold the bottom nut and move our jam nut tight to the top and jam it in place. After we have the conveyor level, all the bolts tightened, the jam nut on the foot tight down, we'll tighten the jam nuts on the pusher bolts that hold the conveyor up to the right height by holding your top one and turning on the bottom one and threading it down to the bottom. Repeating our process from the in-feed conveyor to the out-feed conveyor, we're going to put our stone support guides back on, putting the bolts in finger tight again. Moving our aluminum bar in front of the first out-feed support, stone support, and then cranking the bar tight to the belt. Again, we'll move the stone support tight to the aluminum bar and tighten the bolts down. Again, we'll loosen the conveyor up and move the aluminum bar out to the second stone support guide, making sure it holds tight against the first one and sliding the second one tight to it. Making sure we don't move the aluminum bar away from the first one, and then tighten your bolts down. We'll want to hook air up to the machine with a 3/8 inside diameter air hose, making sure to use a hose barb. Tightening the hose clamp to make sure the hose does not fall off the hose barb. Next, we'll want to hook water up to the machine using a 3/4 inch inside diameter hose, again making sure to use a hose clamp. Having a licensed electrician wire up your machine through the specified hole that's pre-drilled into the cabinet. Enter in the cabinet, turn your handle, and the disconnect holds it shut, so you turn it to the reset open position and your door should open up. Have them tie their wires into the main disconnect on the machine. You'll want to put your supplied serial number tags, one on the outside of the cabinet right above the main disconnect sticker, and the second one on the left-hand door panel in the upper left-hand corner of the door panel, close to where the electrical prints are located. We're going to take the bridge oscillation bolt out by taking 2 3/4 inch wrenches, one on the back side on the jam nut, one on the front side on the jam nut, and loosen the jam nuts up. Once we have the jam nuts loose, we're going to spin the back one out of our way and take the 3/4 inch wrench and pull the bolt loose from the bridge. Then we're going to leave the bolt in there, but as far away from the bridge as we can. Then jam the jam nuts on the front and back side again to leave the bolt in place. Taking our wrenches and tightening the jam nuts so they don't wiggle loose. We're going to take two 11/16 inch wrenches and loosen the procks. And pull the procks away from the target. So the light turns off. Again, jam the jam nuts back tight so it doesn't wiggle loose. Now we're going to set this hard stop on spindle number 1. The spindle number 1 is a 50 grit pad. It takes too much material if we don't have a hard stop. It takes enough material to make a square edge for polishing. To do that, we're going to go into our manual screen. We're going to extend spindle number 1. After we extend spindle number 1, we're going to take our aluminum squaring bar and set it over the top of spindle number 1 with the back side of it over all the white rollers. Now what we want to do is have this first pad just barely rubbing the top edge of the aluminum bar. If it's not rubbing the aluminum bar, we have to adjust this hard stop in the back. To adjust the hard stop, if you need to move the spindle up towards the machine or towards the aluminum bar, you put one wrench on the bolt on the bottom and loosen the jam nut on top. If you need to go up with the spindle, you turn the bolt inward. If you need to go down, you turn the bolt outward. Once you have the pad just touching your aluminum bar, you hold your bottom wrench and tighten the jam nut. To check rotation on the machine, you have to press and hold the PI screen. And then you hit your next button and you can bump each spindle. Spindles are supposed to rotate counterclockwise. If the spindles run clockwise, we want to call your electrician to change the rotation of the machine by changing your phasing.